Okay, I'm going to look at the chart that's coming up with the North Node entering Aquarius. It's Penelope in London, and there's a few changes going on. So this is really the week at the end of July, 23rd, and a few other events that are going on. And I thought that it would be useful just to cover that. So we've got Jupiter opposition Pluto exact July 26th, and then also Mercury direct on July 23rd, but we've also got the, there's something, let me see here. I'm going to show you the chart actually so you can see what I'm saying. So Jupiter opposition, you can see here, we've got Pluto, Jupiter opposition. So Pluto is in Aquarius and Jupiter is in Leo, and they're going to meet up at in the 4 degree mark. And then between that, we've got, this is between July 23rd and July 26th. So it's a significant astrological sequence that a lot of people are talking about at the moment on YouTube. And it's arguably, the chart of the decade, really. It's on July 23rd, Mercury stations direct in Cancer. So let's just move backwards and forwards with this chart slightly. I want to make sure I'm sharing it properly. Emanated charts. So if we look at Mercury, which is currently retrograde, you see the little R there? That's what it shows on solar fires. So if I go days ahead and tell you what date this is, so that stations on the July 24th. So Mercury is actually, although the thing is, a lot of astrologers would probably say that once it comes out of the RX here, that it's direct, but it's station direct. So we can say that that is the 22nd and then the 23rd, and then it comes out of station on July 25th. And with this, we've also 3 days later, we've got the North Node crosses from Pisces into Aquarius. So this is exciting for me. I'm excited by this because I've got Chiron, Saturn, Pisces, and it's been so heavy in my lifetime. I'm looking forward to this shift out of Pisces because we've had so many things in Pisces. The North Node in Pisces, we've had Saturn in Pisces, we've had Neptune in Pisces. So it's fresh, whatever's going on. And I definitely feel some sort of difference going on for myself. So let's see the North Node from Pisces to into Aquarius. That's here. If I go by hours, let's see. This is British summertime chart I'm showing you, but we're going to go back by hours. There you go. So it's 00 degrees on the 26th, July 26th. And then July 27th, but that is at 2 a.m., literally 2 a.m. in the morning. If you look at my pointer here, that's 2 a.m. British summertime. So for you guys in the USA, it's going to be the 26th that this node then moves into Aquarius. And the North Node in Aquarius is a quest towards service to humankind. And it's a struggle between our own personal needs and a sense of dedication to others. And we can see that going on in society at the moment. Like we want to be dedicated to others, but we've also got our own needs. It's part of this is laying aside our own personal need and for honor and prestige and use our talents for service of the world. So this is beautiful because really Pluto up there in Aquarius as well is really tying in with this. And then we've got Uranus, which is in Gemini, 4 degrees, ruling the node and Pluto. And at some point they're going to meet, but I'll talk about the Pluto node will meet Pluto, but later on in the year. Not that maybe this year, we'll double check. So at the same moment, Jupiter's going to be 4 degrees of Leo. So if we come back now to 4 degrees, we've got Jupiter, we're going to go back. And Jupiter 428, we've got Pluto at 417. So we're doing hours back to get that to the mark. 418. Well, that's 5. I'm going to have to go by days. Thank you for being patient with me whilst I whiz around the chart. So 417 and 427. So that's about the 20th, a few days away. If I go hours, I like to see it exact. So 417, 427. So if I go forward, 426, 423, 426. So 426. So that will be the exact opposition. That's July the 20th. And then that north node, as you know, is going to move into Aquarius. So we're going to have, at this point, we're going to have the Pluto opposition to Jupiter. And we're going to have Uranus also sextile to Jupiter. And then we've got Uranus sextile to Neptune and Neptune sextile to Pluto. So I wonder what it's all going to mean for all of us, but we read as we read when we read astrology. So these events are not separate. They belong to one unified moment, and the mind turning outward again because Mercury goes direct, and the collective evolutionary direction shifting onto a new axis, and the tension between individual creative power and collective transformation reaching its moment of maximum clarity. So this is very beautiful. And we think with all of the technology we've got, you know, whilst there's a lot of issues with data centers, I think that when I look now, because of social media, the level of my friendships that I do have, that I maintain, that have been really good to me, some of those people have come through YouTube, they've come through Substack. These are people that I've actually met that have I met through YouTube and then traveled to see in the USA. I had friends from the USA through social media come visit me here. So it's opened up my world as somebody that's had a lot of trauma and a very closed off life and being very inward. It's been a way for me to fully express myself and give me confidence. So there's been a lot of good things about social media, but also there's a lot that annoys me now. Things like the advertising on our apps, like there's advertising on Instagram and there's advertising on Facebook, which I mainly use Facebook to post my flowers, and I take pictures of flowers, so that's what I do there. It's not so busy for me there. I love doing my writing on Substack and I love doing YouTube. Anyway, back to the planet. So before I go into detail, if anything I share resonates with you, and I can bring you into contact with your own natal chart if you don't understand it, and give you some understanding of your natal chart. I work with people individually, and the booking link is in the description below. So let's see Mercury direct. We're saying the 23rd in the UK, so we're going to go days ahead here. I hope you enjoy seeing the chart move. Some people, I think, just listen. And some people like to watch, I guess, and listen. I'm more of a somebody that likes to listen myself rather than watch YouTubes. So we've got Mercury that's gone direct on the 23rd, and Mercury has been retrograde in Cancer. So it's going direct on the 23rd, and Mercury has been retrograde in Cancer since June the 29th. Just under 4 weeks of the mind turning inward, moving through emotional memory and revisiting what has been felt but not yet spoken, working in this tidal sort of situation because it's water, associative, non-linear way that Cancer demands of Mercury. That retrograde has been running through most of the most personally significant weeks of the summer, and the new moon in Cancer on that we just had on the 14th of July was seeded into the retrograde field. So the conversations that have happened, with the realizations that have surfaced, the things that have finally found their way towards language, all of that has been Mercury retrograde in Cancer doing a slow, honest interior work. And on the July 23rd, Mercury stationing direct, the mind turns outward again. And that's which has been processed in private during the retrograde is now ready to meet the world. And the words that were found in the quiet times of the interior are ready to be spoken. So Robert Hand, who's got a book called Planets in Transit, which is brilliant, he says about Mercury retrograde is to use the period for inner reflection, to observe our process quietly, and to carry forward the new directions only after Mercury has gone direct, and perhaps a fortnight beyond when Mercury has fully cleared its retrograde shadow. However, I would say there's some things that we just have to get on with. We can't always run our lives by planets. They're just happening anyway. There's so many things that happen in the space of a month, for instance. When I look back on the last month of my life, so many things have happened that I've had to deal with. So July 23rd is like a turning point, and what we have been sitting with since the end of June, that has been clarified, reconsidered, understood more deeply, we can now begin to move forward with that. So 3 days, that is the gap between Mercury turning direct and the North Node then entering Aquarius. So that's the 23rd. We go ahead 1 day, 2, 3, and then it's in the sign of Aquarius. So, and the timing feels deliberate in a way with that Mercury, the way it's worked out. The interior work, then, the interior work with that Cancer Mercury retrograde has sort of been completed. And then the direction shifts the collective because of the North Node moving into Aquarius. And what was understood in private becomes relevant to something much larger. And I think we're feeling that. And the North Node enters Aquarius, as I've said, July 26th. And this crosses from Pisces into Aquarius, and the nodes move in a retrograde motion. So this shift marks the North Node moving backward through the zodiac from Pisces to Aquarius, where it will remain until the March 2028. And that's a long time, it's a long time to get things done. It doesn't sound like a long time, but I always find if I look back 2 months of my life, the things that I've achieved, the things that I've experienced, the growth that's been going on, even a month, I've had experiences that, I didn't know I was going to have. I've had to deal with things. And then there's been good things as well. So the South Node also then is moving from Virgo into Leo. And the last time the North Node occupied Aquarius, this is the interesting bit, I love the history of this, was 2007 to 2009 roughly, and that's 18 and a half years ago. And that period gave us the global financial crisis of 2008. So we don't need to be scary about things, but things are definitely changing. I'm going to go back to 2007 here and see where that node is. So see here, so 2007, and the node was in, so July 2007, the node was at 7 degrees of Pisces. And remember, it goes in retrograde motion. So we're going to go weeks ahead. And it moves a bit slow. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's 29. So that's if I go by days, we can see the day that it went into Aquarius. And it would have been December 18th, 2007, that node. And look at this chart at the moment you're looking at is 2007. So it occupied Aquarius 2007 to 2009. And that period gave us the global financial crisis of 2008, which permanently destabilized the old economic order. And I'm sure many of us alive remember that. I certainly do. And it revealed the hollowness at the heart of the systems we trusted to hold it together. It gave us the iPhone also was introduced, I believe, in 2007, and the birth of what would become the architecture of the collective intelligence and collective connection that now shapes how almost every human being on the planet thinks, communicates, and relates. It's completely different. And Bitcoin was created, I think it was 2008 as well. So the foundations of the technological collective, for better and for worse, because there's two sides to this, were laid during the last North Node in Aquarius. And the thing is, this is the issue that we've got going on. We've got that there are issues with the artificial intelligence. We all use it. Everybody who's got a phone and has to, communicate, or apps, most of the planet is using this, whether we think we are or not. When we make payments online or go on the underground in London or the UK, people swiping with their phone. I don't do that. I prefer keeping my cards separate, but people do it what they feel works for them. So this is for better or for worse, and we know that the collective mind was being rewired, and we did not know that at the time. We didn't know what it would become. And now the North Node is returning to Aquarius 18.5 years later, and the evolutionary direction of the collective soul is shifting away from Pisces, from the dissolution, the compassionate surrender, the letting go of what outlived its purpose, towards Aquarius. And Aquarius is the sign of the collective intelligence. It's of community built on shared values rather than inherited structures. And there's a lot we've inherited. Some of it works, some of it doesn't work. Of innovation in service of the whole rather than the few. Of the network of individual lights rather than the single sovereign flame. So, this is about the collective. And with Pluto there, I'll tell you the dates that Pluto had been with the North Node in Aquarius, which is very interesting to me too. So the North Node is asking, if it could ask, now that the old structures have been dissolved, Pisces, yeah, and we've let go and we've done all of this work, what are we actually going to build? So it's like the building something new. And what new form of collective organization, of shared intelligence, of genuine community is possible on the other side of all of this dissolution, which the things that have dissolved. So Pluto, if I go to, I've got some dates. So I just want to say that Pluto is already there. It's been there since 2023. It went retrograde back into Capricorn, and then it left, and it will remain there now until 2043 and 2044, because it'll go into the sign of Pisces, and then that will be fascinating. And then Pluto in Pisces, but anyway, we won't go there at this time. And then it will go back into, it will retrograde back into Aquarius, and then it will move into Pisces. So Pluto is the planet of collective transformation, as we understand it, of what must die in order for what is genuinely new to be born. And it's the dismantling of power structures that have become corrupt or exhausted, or the irreversible reorganization of how collective life is organized, because clearly it needs to be organized differently. People often, in the past, people have spent a whole lifetime working, having to pay mortgages and such things, and building for things for the future all of the time, and never really particularly living in the now. But at the same time, I think there was a period of time when there was more of a balance, and then it got a bit out of balance. I think in the maybe this, not the 70s, maybe the 90s, the 2000s, and things just became more about money and stuff like that. And then people were not really really living for who they really are, or just the simple things in life as well, the beautiful, simple things. So we've got this corruption and exhaustion, and we are now needing to reorganize that. And Pluto in Aquarius for 20 years is the long, slow, grinding transformation of the collective systems, of the technology, governance, and of how power is distributed and who holds it. Because I think power needs to be, I don't really like the word power, but I think the way things are held needs, the distribution needs to be different. And because there is a lack of honesty in some areas of politics, and the way money is distributed and things like that, there's a lot of things where people are getting up to no good. So we do need not a redistribution of money, but a redistribution of resources. And when that North Node crosses into Aquarius, it's going to eventually move into conjunction with Pluto, which is the soul's evolutionary direction, and the planet of collective transformation meets in the same sign. So this is not a gentle or an incremental thing. The North Node conjunct Pluto in any sign is a moment of profound, it's pressure. It's like evolutionary pressure. The North Node and Pluto, anytime a planet meets the North Node, we just had at the moment, which is easing off, the Uranus, if I come back to today, which is the 15th, or we got the 15th of July, 2026. So you can see here that we did have the square to the North Node and South Node to Uranus, and that's literally moved off a little while ago. It's still there though, it's still within orb. So the North Node conjunct Pluto is it's pressure, and it's the direction we're being drawn toward, and it's aligned with intense transformation. So there's no soft path available here. If we look actually at that North Node, I'll probably have to go years ahead, but it's worth seeing. So if I go 1 year ahead, that's July 2027, and we got the 11 degrees. So if I go months now, so you can see what date this North Node meets Pluto. So the North Node will meet Pluto at, I'm going to go back weeks. I love astrology. So they're going to meet at 4 degrees there. Are they going to meet at 5 degrees? 4. They're going to meet at 4 degrees. And that's around November 2027. And remember, as you're looking at this now, this chart is 2027, but we'll deal with that in a moment if we move ahead. So the growth that Aquarius calls for is platonic in its depth and its demand, and what is genuinely new, cannot be built on the foundation of what must be, change. These two are inseparable. It's very beautiful to know the date here as well, that we can expect that to happen. So the history, from my history, and I don't want to quote myself too firmly on this, because these are the only dates I checked. I ran the chart and I was looking, and I've got the North Node, the history of 1058 and 1785, that Pluto conjunct the North Node. So I'm just going to read these two, give you a bit of information about these two so you can get the idea of that energy field that was going on then. So to understand the full weight of what is happening, coming up, we need to look back not 18 and a half years, but much further. And Pluto conjunct the North Node in Aquarius is very rare. It's happened within recorded history that we can meaningfully examine. How far do we want to go back? But if we go back to 1058 and 1785, these are two moments that they did meet that I checked out on. And the parallels to our own time are striking enough to deserve bringing this up. So in 1058, the world was 4 years on from the Great Schism of 1054. It was the permanent splitting of the Christian church into Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox. Now, I don't know much about religion at all, but I do know at the moment I'm listening to a book on Audible. It's called She. It's by Rider Haggard, and it was written in the late 1800s. And they were talking about this how religions can be very problematic because people will fight over their religion. So I am not religious, but I do sort of feel a connection with what I would call a god. But the god, that whatever I consider that to be, is not a person. It's more like an energy of awareness of the sanctity of all life and the breath and the beauty of the individual. But also we've got the other side of humanity that can be very harsh and very cruel and very troublesome. So I can't really explain what, this idea of God means to me. It's a felt experience for me. So this time of this breaking down and splitting in 1058, this was not simply theological disagreement. It was the irreversible fracturing of the most powerful institutional structure in the medieval world. And the organizations that had held the collective spiritual and political life and entire civilization together for centuries. Apparently, this is where I've searched for this. The Norman conquest of England was 8 years away. And then the Seljuk Turks were reshaping the Islamic world, and the collective orders, religious, political, civilizational, were cracking open and being permanently reorganized into new forms. So we're talking Pluto Aquarius, North Node. And Pluto conjunct the North Node in Aquarius in 1058 was the astrological signature of a world where structures were in irreversible transition. And I do believe at the moment we are in an irreversible transition, but I don't see it as a bad thing. I think we have to keep, something's got to give and change the way we're doing things, the way we treat the earth, the way we treat each other. And clearly, we're not going to clean everything up, but that's not the nature of the way things work. And then we've also got Mother Nature that has got her own way of doing things and dealing with things that we have no control over. But the skies are played with, as we know. Some people don't know because they're so busy looking at their mobile phones that they don't look up to see that there are lines painted in the sky often, and it's all over the world. You can check out Instagram and look for chemtrails, and you'll see these lines that are painted everywhere in the sky that clearly are no secret anymore. But if you keep looking at your phone and you don't look up, then you won't see them. And if you were born into a time when this has been going on, the last 10, 15 years, then maybe you don't know any different. That's the thing as well. So what we're aware of, and what we're not. So we have in 1785, we have 4 years before the French Revolution of 1789, and the old order is in its final years. And this says through Louis and the French aristocracy do not yet know it. What is happening in 1785 is deeply Aquarian in its character. The dollar is established as the official currency. So get that, that's a new currency came in with Pluto conjunct the North Node, or Pluto in Aquarius, and a new collective system of value being created from nothing. So let's go back to 1785 so that I'm not just making it up. From the history, we have 1785 and we have Pluto in Aquarius with the North Node. That was November 1785. So the dollar is established as the official currency of the new American Republic, and a new collective system of value being created from nothing. And that's how, like Bitcoin, it was created from nothing. So money, people used to use salt, I believe, as trading. So we create things from nothing. That's what humans do, and that's what we've done, which is a positive thing. And computers, they came from nothing. Everything that is around us came the way it came. So then we've got a mathematical framework was made for the collective decision making and the rights of the majority with the voting laws. The University of Georgia became the first state-funded institution of higher learning. I did not know that. This is research I've done. So if you know any different and you think I've got it wrong, you've got every right to tell me below. So not the knowledge belonging to the public rather than to the privileged. And then Caroline Herschel became the first woman to discover a comet breaking into exclusively male dominion of scientific authority. And the first crossing of the English Channel by air takes place in January. This is just incredible, isn't it? And the beginning of humanity's relationship with transcending the physical boundaries between nations. And a 16-year-old, Napoleon Bonaparte, graduates from Military Academy in Paris. The seed of the revolution is not yet visible on the surface, but Pluto conjunct the North Node in Aquarius in 1785 is the underground condition that makes 1789 inevitable. So, and now 2026, we got this same alignment returns, and it's not for the first time in a generation or even several generations. For the first time since 1785, the question it is asking, if it was going to ask, is Pluto, when Pluto meets the North Node in Aquarius, what collective structures have become so rigid, so corrupted, so misaligned with genuine human flourishing that they are irreversible transition and are in irreversible transition, and what is the new form of collective organization? So when we look at each other, like, there are better ways of doing things. There's some organizations that are just so restricted and rigid with really outrageous and really stupid rules that it's beyond comprehension. Like, you can talk to some people and you can't even make them see how their rigidness of not understanding something is just like comical. But that is what goes on in the world. And we're just dealing with each other ultimately. And what is the new form now of the collective organization? And if we can build it on shared intelligence, on genuine community, and the Aquarian principle that the network of individual lights is more powerful than one single centralized flame. It's all of us. And that is attempting to be born on the other side of all of this. So now, after that, we're going to go Jupiter opposition Pluto. It's the reckoning. So Jupiter, we're going to leave 1785 behind, and we're going to come back to today, which is the 15th of July, 15th, 2026. Hope you're enjoying this. I learn a hell of a lot when I'm researching these things, because that is what it's about. It's like looking what happened then, asking the question, what was going on when that was going on. So Jupiter, on the same day the North Node enters Aquarius, Jupiter reaches the exact opposition with Pluto at 4 degrees. So let's see the North Node in Aquarius. So we're going to go days, and we're going to go 1, 2. We're going days. It moves slowly, that node. There you go. There it is. So you see, this is actually hours. Almost. Yeah, because it's 5 degrees. So anyway, we know what we're talking about. So we got the 4 degrees, and then the North Node moves in. So the two planets in direct communication and confrontation across Leo and Aquarius, and the same axis of the nodal shift is being activated. We have been tracking this opposition since the new moon in Cancer. So where it is already applying with 1.5 degrees, now it's, getting into the exact thing. So I did look at what Robert Hand in Planets in Transit and how he described that, and the Pluto opposition Jupiter transit as one that drives the individual, added and by extension the collective, towards the actualization of an ideal about how the world ought to be. It carries a powerful impulse towards excellence and towards truth, toward the making real of something that has previously existed only as a vision, but it also carries a significant shadow. So with all of us, even ourselves, we have a shadow. We might like to think we're really kind and we're really all of these wonderful things, but we have another side to us that's not so pretty, and that's okay, because this is the human condition. So, and also the planets likewise have this, thing going on as well. So too much of anything, one over the other. So, but it also carries a significant shadow, the danger of arrogance. So there can be a danger of arrogance and becoming domineering. So this can be with wars and, belief systems where people just become arrogant and domineering, or behaving as though one's own conception of the ideal state is so correct that it overrides the rights and the realities of others. So this is global. This is not just one place in the world. This is over women, children. It's, expecting men to go off to war. It's all sorts of different things that get implicated. The use of chemicals on food, the chemtrails in the sky, just like thinking that we can control everything and being arrogant about it. So of becoming, in Hand's words, a law unto itself, and finding the law of society must eventually respond. So in the collective register, this opposition is describing something that I think most of us can feel without really needing to explain it at this time. The drive is to actualize an ideal. So the ideal would be, we're living our lives, we're born into the world, and then we're going to leave at some point. But in between that, there is an ideal. There's an ideal of many things on both sides of the Leo Aquarius axis from multiple directions. And combined with the plutonic intensity that makes those drives feel absolute, non-negotiable, immune to the perspective of others. Jupiter in Leo, as its shadow, is the individual so convinced of the rightness of their own creative authority and their own vision that they cannot hear the claims of the collective. So it's like just not hearing anything. And Pluto in Aquarius, at its shadow, is the collective so convinced of the necessity of transformation that it flattens individual dignity in the name of the greater good. So the opposition asks, if it's going to ask, whether these can be held in genuine dialogue. So can we hold this in dialogue? What is good for me and what is good for an other and what is good for the collective, whether individual creative fire and collective transformation can find a form that honors both, because we do need to do this. It needs to be honorable, of whether this tension between them will simply generate escalating conflict, because this is how conflict happens. And then, with the resources of the world, most wars to me look like they're about resources. That's what it looks like from where I'm standing. And I'm at my second Saturn return, so I've been around a bit, so I can see what is, what it looks like to me. So Robert Hand's counsel is worth holding in the collective as well as the personal before attempting to improve everyone around you. Strive to improve yourself. So gain a greater understanding of truth, but do not force, it's not forcing your views on others. The opportunity this transit is genuinely offering, and it does offer something real, is spiritual regeneration, because Jupiter is to do with spirituality. It holds the ninth house as well, and a greater understanding of yourself, of what truth is, of yourself and your place in the universe. And the encounters that happen around this time of the exact opposition and the meetings and the confrontations and the clarities that arrive are showing us something about the path of development we are being called towards, not only individually but collectively. But if we are willing to set aside what Han calls the petty ego drives that give us the illusion that we are already there, because we're not there. There's a long, long way to go. So if we look at this week, Mercury, again, direct on the 23rd, North Node into Aquarius on the 26th, Jupiter exact opposing around the same time. These three events, 3 days, one unified movement, and the Mercury direct is the permission to speak what was understood in the quiet retrograde. So we have permission to speak. The North Node into Aquarius is the collective soul's new direction, which is beautiful, towards genuine community, towards collective intelligence. We need intelligence in service of the whole, towards the building of something new on the ground that Pisces has cleared. And Jupiter opposing Pluto in this is the confrontation that cannot be avoided, because in changes, there's going to be somebody that's going to not be happy. This is the nature of things, between individual creative power and the collective transformation, between the sovereign self and the demands of the collective, and between the vision of how things ought to be and the platonic truth of the things exactly as they are. So there are things that, however ideal we want to be, we'll never, there's certain things that are almost impossible to reach, because there's a collective underlying shadow that's so gunky and problematic that it would take a lot more people becoming responsible for themselves, and not everyone can do it, and we're all different age groups and all different points in our lives, and we've all had different wisdom and experience. So there's no us and them. It's like we, which is the Aquarian thing. It's we, yeah, all of us. We have been at the threshold before in 1058 and 1785. I think those are the only two times that they've done in the local recent history. When I say recent, I'm talking astrologically. So 1785 and 1058, the Pluto North Node conjunction in Aquarius. But don't hold me to that, because when I ran the chart, that's what I saw. So each time those living through it could feel that something irreversible was in motion. And maybe you feel it. I definitely feel it. Even if they could not yet see what it would become and what we are living through now, and that's the same quality, because that Pluto, that Jupiter, when it was conjunct 2020, it was conjunct Pluto, which was when we had with Saturn. So if I go to 2020, before I leave, because I'm nearly finished, the 2020, look here, Jupiter was with Pluto and Saturn. And that was 2020, when we were all going through hell. And that was the lead up to this point now, which is from 2026. And it's in opposition, because it's a 12-year cycle. Yeah. There you go. So the question that we, this 20 years Pluto in Aquarius, the question is, can we participate in this consciously? And also, if we can teach, our wisdom and what we know with genuine humility, and as because Robert Hand describes this, being humble, but also using our intelligence and our knowledge, with the willingness to be changed as well as to change things. So there are things we're all stuck on. Where am I willing to be changed? Where are you willing to be changed? What are we willing to change collectively, with the Aquarian understanding that the collective is not the enemy of the individual? Because I think what's been happening since 2020 is that we feel that the individual, that we're enemies almost, and we all became quite closed off and shut down, which we couldn't help it because of 2020 and 2021. But now I can see a different thing going on when I'm out and about. So, and maybe you're seeing that too. So the individual and the field within the individual finds its deepest meaning. Excuse me. So Mercury direct, the mind is ready. This North Node has arrived and Pluto is waiting, and the work begins now. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know, because I don't know if anybody listens all the way through. And if you do, if you give me a like, I'd be really grateful. Thanks for listening.